everyone, yasas que kalos to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a heartwarming Greek-style beef stew that's going to be made with peppers and mushrooms. It's easy to make and loaded with flavor. Let's get started. Okay, we're going to begin by prepping all of the ingredients. So I'm going to finely chop 2 onions and set them aside. I have boneless beef ribs here, and I'll just cut them into cubes around this size. You can cut them a little bit bigger if you like and set those aside. I'm also going to prepare the peppers and the mushrooms at this point. So I'm using 3 bell peppers. You can use any color that you like, carefully cut around the seed. Then I'll also cut these into cubes around this size. For the mushrooms, I like to wet a kitchen towel and just very carefully clean them all around just to get any dirt that might be left on them off. I never wash mushrooms, but if you like to wash them, you can go ahead and do that. I've always been taught that they become gummy if you wash them, so I never do. I just clean them in this way. I'm going to remove the stem and just discard it, or you could save it for your compost pile if you like, and then just slice them up, either thin or thick. It just depends how you like your mushrooms in your stew. And these are going to go into a baking pan, and I'm going to set them aside. So now I have my pot heating over medium-high heat. I'll add about 1/4 cup of olive oil to it. And then since I'm using a wide pot, all of the beef cubes will fit in here. This is about 2 pounds of boneless beef, so they'll go in an even layer. If your pot is a little smaller, do this in 2 or 3 batches as to not overcrowd the pan. Of course, if you want to, you can also brown them in your air fryer. That's optional. If you're doing them in the air fryer, 400 degrees for about 8 minutes should be good enough. So I'll brown the beef for about 5 minutes on each side and then transfer it to a plate. At this point, turn the heat off because the oil will be very hot, and you could add your onions to the pot, turn the heat back on, cook them over medium heat until they're nice and soft and golden. That should take about 8 to 10 minutes or so. At this point, you can add the garlic, but I forgot to do that. Instead, I put the beef in, so that's perfectly fine. I'll just make a little bit of room and add about 6 garlic cloves that are grated and just cook it through until it's nice and fragrant. That just takes a few seconds. And now we're going to add all of the remaining ingredients. So about 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. I love it because it's rich and it's slightly sweet. I'll season the meat with some salt and freshly cracked black pepper. So for 2 pounds of meat, I'll start with a teaspoon of salt. And if it needs more salt, I'll add more later on. 1 bay leaf will go in here. 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, some crushed red pepper flakes if you like the heat. If you don't, you can leave it out. And then a 15-ounce can or 425 grams can of tomatoes. You can use crushed tomatoes for this or a tomato sauce. I'm using a tomato sauce that the only other ingredients in it is a little bit of salt, and I know they put a little bit of sugar in here, so I will leave the sugar out today, but anytime I'm using canned tomatoes, I like to add either a little bit of sugar or a little bit of honey because they are acidic and you do need a little bit of sweetness in here to offset that. I'm also going to pour in enough water to cover all of the meat, give everything a nice mix, and then let it come to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, reduce the heat to low, cover the pot, and let this cook low and slow for about 1.5 hours or until the meat is really nice and tender. While that's happening, you can preheat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Put the pan of mushrooms and bell peppers on the top rack for 10 minutes, and then you can turn the broiler element on high for about 2 to 3 minutes so that way they can get nice color on them. Take them out and set them aside. Once the meat is nice and tender and the sauce is really nice and thick, you can taste the sauce and adjust the seasoning. You could add some more salt and pepper if you'd like. At this point, the peppers and mushrooms are going to go in, and the stew will just warm through for about 3 to 5 minutes longer, and it's ready to serve. The only thing left is to garnish this with some freshly chopped parsley, and the stew is ready. So just like that, the stew is ready and the house smells so good. I cannot wait to serve this. All you need to serve this with is some maybe toasted bread. You can serve this over mashed potatoes. If you want to serve this with like a Mediterranean rice, a green salad just to freshen and lighten everything up. I have a delicious green marullo salata recipe, which is basically a Greek green lettuce salad with herbs and a nice bright vinaigrette. It would go perfectly with this. Let's do the taste test. So the meat is really soft, and I want to make sure I get a mushroom and a pepper. Perfection. So good. The mushrooms cooked perfectly in the oven, as did the peppers. Nothing is mushy or falling apart or soggy. The stew is the perfect consistency and it's so warm and just comforting. I think you guys are gonna really like this. If you're not a fan of mushrooms, you can just leave them out. You can substitute in your favorite veggies in this or just leave it with the peppers, just like that. Potatoes would also be really great in this. So give this recipe a try. You can print it out on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, Ess.